Welcome to Christian Podcast, where we look at the world and our own lives through a Christian lens.
Glad to be digging into another topic today.
Absolutely. And today's is a big one. AI in management, promises and perils. It's become incredibly clear, really fast, hasn't it, that artificial intelligence isn't just, working in the background anymore.
No, not at all. It's actively reshaping how managers work, what their roles look like, and that brings, well, both exciting potential and some genuinely significant challenges we really need to think about.
Yeah. Challenges we need to unpack carefully.
That's right. For this deep dive, we've gone through quite a bit of material. We're looking closely at sources like AI in the workplace, navigating risks, and embracing stewardship through biblical wisdom. That's a key one.
Okay.
And we've also pulled insights from other places, like the Economist's Boss Class podcast, specifically their episode, How to Handle the AI Manager, and some other related articles you shared.
Great. So our mission here, our goal for this conversation, is to really unpack both sides. The potential benefits, the exciting stuff AI might offer management, but also the very real, maybe concerning risks that come along with it.
And importantly, doing that from a specific viewpoint.
Exactly. We want to interpret these challenges, these opportunities, not just, from a business efficiency angle, but standing firm on a Christian standpoint. Using the wisdom of the Bible to think about God's design for work, for leadership, and crucially for our role as stewards. Stewards of resources, yes, but also stewards of the people that God entrusts to us.
That stewardship piece feels central here. Okay, let's dive in then. Where do we start? Maybe with the promise.
Yeah, let's start with the potential upside. What's the big promise of AI in management, according to these sources?
Okay, well, the core promise that comes through again and again is efficiency. Fundamentally, AI is really good at handling routine, predictable tasks. It can free managers up from what one source called the administrative grunt work.
Oh, the grunt work. We all know that feeling. The endless emails, the scheduling nightmares, chasing down info, writing the same kind of report over and over.
Exactly that stuff. Think about fielding standard holiday requests, maybe sifting through emails for common questions, even drafting initial meeting minutes or those basic status updates nobody loves writing.
Right. Tedious but necessary.
Well, necessary until now, maybe.
Yeah.
The material highlighted a McKinsey survey suggesting AI could potentially save nearly a full working day, that's like 8 hours, every week for the average middle manager.
A full working day. Wow. That's not just a little bit of time back. That changes the whole shape of a manager's week, potentially.
It's significant.
And framing that through our Christian lens, it immediately makes me think about stewardship. God gives us gifts, resources, our time, our abilities. If AI can genuinely take over that purely administrative load, well, it becomes a steward's tool, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's precisely the framing the sources encourage. It's a tool to be managed wisely.
A tool to improve the manager's role, allowing them to focus on, well, more meaningful, more impactful work, the human stuff.
That's the crucial distinction the sources really press on. The efficiency itself isn't the ultimate goal. It's a means to an end. If AI handles the mundane successfully, the manager then has this enhanced capacity to do what's arguably the most vital part of their job anyway.
Which is
Actually caring for, guiding, developing, and equipping their teams. That aligns perfectly with a vocational calling, doesn't it? Seeing leadership as shepherding people.
Absolutely. It supports personal discipleship, mentorship right there in the workplace, building people up, not just managing tasks.
It really transforms the potential. Instead of being primarily an administrator who happens to oversee people, you can be a leader who intentionally mentors and develops people.
I really like that emphasis in the material using AI to enhance the human side of management, not letting it accidentally push it out. The sources also mentioned AI helping with development in practical ways.
Yes, definitely. AI is brilliant at crunching huge amounts of data, skills, data, project needs, company goals. So it can help match employees to internal job opportunities they might never have seen otherwise.
Oh, interesting. Like an internal matchmaker.
Sort of. And it can also help identify skill gaps, either across the whole organization or just within specific teams, and maybe even suggest relevant training or resources.
Which sounds like a win-win. The company gets a more skilled, adaptable workforce, and the employee gets concrete support for their own career growth and development.
Precisely. And, the material we looked at even frames AI itself as a kind of talent in the biblical sense, like in the parable from Matthew 25, something given to us that we need to develop and use productively.
Okay, I see that connection. A resource to be stewarded.
But, and this is the critical caveat they kept raising, This talent, this powerful tool, must be paired with intentional ongoing investment in people. It's not enough to just roll out the tech and hope for the best.
Right. You can't just set it and forget it.
No. You have to keep investing in the people who use it, the people who are managed by systems using it, and the people whose roles are inevitably changing because of it.
So looking at the big picture promise, viewed through that Christian perspective, it's about using AI to empower both managers and employees, to enhance human flourishing.
That's the idea. Using technology not just for profit or speed, though those might happen, but fundamentally to improve the human experience at work, allowing people to use their God-given gifts more fully and to receive the guidance and support they need to grow.
That is a compelling vision, a really positive potential.
It absolutely is. But, as often happens with powerful tools, that promise comes loaded with some pretty significant perils if we don't approach it with wisdom, with discernment, and with a firm grounding in core principles, like human dignity.
Okay. So here's the other side of the coin, the perils. If AI offers this incredible power, what are the dangers if that power isn't wielded carefully? What's the first big risk the sources flagged?
The first, and perhaps the most immediate risk they highlighted, is what they called over-aggressive cost-cutting, meaning AI's ability to analyze efficiency, automate tasks, identify redundancies. It can create this powerful temptation for organizations to see people, managers, frontline employees, primarily as costs to be optimized or even eliminated.
Okay.
This can lead to, well, excessive layoffs driven almost solely by the bottom line, simply because the AI analysis suggests you can operate with fewer people.
And how does that square, or rather clash, with a Christian view of people and work?
Well, it clashes pretty fundamentally, doesn't it? It goes directly against the biblical truth that every single individual is created in God's image, the imago Dei, from Genesis 1.27.
Their value isn't just their output.
Exactly. Their worth isn't derived from their productivity score or how much they cost the company. Their worth is inherent, God-given. Using AI primarily as a justification for mass workforce reduction risks fundamentally devaluing individuals whom God values immensely. It treats them like disposable units rather than persons with inherent dignity and purpose.
The Boss Class podcast and that Navigating Risks article both seem to really dig into this. They talked about companies wanting to trim bureaucratic fat, which, okay, sometimes might be necessary.
Sometimes, yeah.
But in doing that, they risk cutting the people they called the unsung heroes.
Absolutely. And often these are the good middle managers, maybe not the ones with the flashiest titles, but the ones who are essential connective tissue in an organization.
What do they do specifically that AI might miss?
They foster genuine team community. They translate the often abstract corporate vision into concrete, actionable scapes for their teams. And crucially, they build the kind of relationships that actually help reduce turnover among frontline staff. They're the glue.
So AI might show you can automate some of the tasks they do, but it doesn't necessarily capture the value of those essential human functions they perform, the things that are harder to quantify.
Precisely. And the danger is you end up with too few good managers. The ones left are overloaded, and the workforce feels adrift, lacking that guidance, that connection, that translation layer.
Did the sources give examples?
They pointed to general trends, mentioning companies like Amazon and Microsoft trimming managerial layers, where you can infer that AI-driven efficiency analysis likely played some role in identifying where cuts could technically be made. But they also highlighted cases like Klarna, the fintech company.
What happened there?
Their initial big push into AI for customer service was reportedly very focused on cost reduction. But it seems it led to some negative customer experiences, some real pushback. It just underscores the danger, you know? Prioritizing cost savings through AI above all else can mean losing sight of the essential human element needed for employee well-being and even for long-term business success.
Wow. That contrasts so sharply with biblical warnings, doesn't it? Warnings against greed, against oppressing workers. You think of James 5.4.
Absolutely.
And it feels worlds away from the example of Joseph in Genesis. Yes, he managed Egypt's resources with incredible efficiency and foresight during that famine.
He did. Amazing planning.
But he did it with this deep concern for the welfare of all the people, ensuring they survived. It wasn't just about optimizing grain storage, it was about saving lives.
That's a powerful contrast. True biblical stewardship, like Joseph showed and like the sources discuss, aims to enhance human flourishing, even while pursuing efficiency. It doesn't just reduce people to numbers on a spreadsheet or, metrics in an AI dashboard.
Colossians 3.23 tells us to work heartily, as for the Lord.
Exactly. And that surely applies not just to our individual tasks, but to how we design systems, how we lead organizations. Are we designing systems, implementing technologies in a way that honors people as for the Lord?
That's a profound question. Okay, so aggressive cost cutting is the first major risk. What's the second danger zone?
The second risk is subtle, but maybe even more pervasive. The encouragement of perverse behaviors and the erosion of genuine relationships.
How so? AI encouraging bad behavior.
Well, think about what AI thrives on. Measurable data. Sentiment scores scraped from emails or chat messages, participation rates in virtual meetings, maybe even keystroke activity, time logged on certain tasks.
Right. Quantifiable stuff.
Quantifiable stuff. And while data can be useful, the sources warn that relying too heavily on it can actually distort human interaction in unhealthy ways.
So instead of encouraging, say, real connection or thoughtful contribution, the AI might incentivize actions that just tick a box on some dashboard.
Precisely that.
Yeah.
A manager might be tempted, for example, to rely on an algorithmic summary of their team's sentiment instead of actually having a difficult, nuanced, maybe uncomfortable conversation with an employee who seems to be struggling.
Ah, I see. Replacing genuine care with what the source is called robotic efficiency.
Exactly. And we know from other research, solid research, that quality one-on-one time with a manager is a huge factor in reducing employee turnover. But if AI dashboards become the main way a manager knows their team, well, paradoxically, they might end up spending less time actually talking with their people.
Using the AI summary as a substitute for human attention rather than a prompt for it.
Yes, that's the critical danger. It's not just about losing a bit of efficiency by talking. It's about losing the effectiveness and trust that comes only from genuine human connection and understanding.
And you mentioned perverse behaviors.
Yeah, measuring specific behaviors can absolutely lead people to act in perverse ways, as one source put it. If, say, meeting participation is a key metric tracked by AI, well, employees might feel pressure to ramble on or speak up, even when they have nothing truly valuable to add, just to make sure the algorithm registers their participation.
Okay, yeah, I can see that happening. Gaming the system.
Or managers might fall into the trap of using automated, maybe cut-and-paste responses generated by AI for employee questions or feedback. It feels efficient, but it can completely undermine motivation, trust, and any sense of genuine connection. It feels impersonal because it is impersonal.
This really pushes us to ask what we truly value in workplace relationships and leadership, doesn't it? From that biblical standpoint, Jesus' command is pretty clear. Love your neighbor as yourself, Mark 12.31. That requires intentional, empathetic engagement, not just data points.
Right, and community isn't built on performance metrics. It's fundamental to God's design for us. Ecclesiastes 4 talks about the strength of two working together compared to one alone that implies relationship, mutual support.
There's a fascinating contrast here, isn't there? AI gives us these external, easily measured metrics.
Yes, surface level often.
But Scripture consistently reminds us that true understanding involves discerning the heart. Like Samuel having to look beyond appearances when anointing David. It's 1 Samuel 16.7. God looks at the heart.
And relying solely on algorithms over compassion, over human intuition. It almost echoes the Pharisees, who sometimes prioritized rigid rule-following over mercy and genuine human need, which Jesus called them out on, Matthew 23.23.
So the consensus in the sources is that AI must be a supplement.
Absolutely. A supplement to relational leadership. It can provide insights that inform human interaction, perhaps flag areas needing attention, but it should never, ever be seen as a replacement for it. Think about Jesus' own ministry, how deeply relational it was. He spent time, he listened, he understood individuals. That personal investment was key.
That's a powerful analogy. Okay, so we have the risk of cost-cutting devaluing people and the risk of metrics distorting relationships. What's the third major risk the sources identified?
The third risk is perhaps the most insidious: distraction. Distraction from deeper, more fundamental problems within the organization.
How does AI distract?
Well, the shine of AI, the novelty, the perceived sophistication, the promise of quick fixes and measurable outputs can be really attractive. So attractive that it diverts attention, resources, and leadership focus away from underlying organizational issues that AI by itself simply cannot fix.
Like, what kind of underlying issues are we talking about?
The sources were quite specific here. They mentioned things like inadequate training for managers. One statistic cited was that 4 out of 5 new managers in Britain received no formal management training at all. 4 out of 5.
Wow, that's staggering.
Or things like misaligned promotion pathways. The classic example, especially common in America apparently, is promoting a fantastic salesperson into a management role they're totally unequipped for, just because they were good at sales.
And then they struggle, maybe blame their team, morale drops, and everyone suffers. Yeah, that happens.
Exactly. Or, even deeper, a fundamental lack of clarity around purpose or vision within leadership roles themselves. People aren't sure why they're managing, beyond just hitting targets.
And the material connected this to spiritual truth.
Yes, quite beautifully, I thought. It framed it by saying that leadership detached from a genuine, compelling purpose, a sense of calling, often leads to emptiness, frustration, and ineffectiveness, no matter how efficient it looks on the surface. This stands in such stark contrast to Jesus' mandate, doesn't it? That the greatest among us must be the servant, Mark 10.43. That's a role defined by purpose and humility, not just authority or hitting KPIs.
So AI comes along, offers these tempting efficiency gains, these dashboards, and it feels easier maybe to implement the tech than to actually tackle those messy, human-centric problems like poor training or lack of purpose.
That's precisely the risk. It forces us to ask a really critical question, one posed directly in the sources. Are we implementing AI to genuinely improve how we work, how we lead, how we develop people? Or are we maybe using it as a shiny object? A way to avoid addressing why our best salespeople often fail as managers, or maybe evading the hard, patient work of providing real mentorship and robust training.
It goes back to that parable of the talents again from Matthew 25.
It does. AI is clearly a powerful talent, a resource we've been given. But the parable isn't just about having talents. It's about wise investment. Investing them in ways that yield true, lasting returns. And in this context, the sources argue, the ultimate return isn't just efficiency points or cost savings. It's human thriving, human flourishing.
So the AI talent has to be paired with that intentional investment in people, their development, their sense of purpose, their well-being.
Absolutely. Otherwise, it's like burying the talent, or maybe worse, using it in a way that actually harms.
It makes me think of Nehemiah rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem back in Nehemiah chapter 2. He didn't just, hand out blueprints and tools.
No, he did much more.
He surveyed the damage, sure, but then he rallied the people around a shared vision. He dealt with internal conflicts and external opposition. He listened to their concerns. He constantly reminded them why they were doing this vital work for God and their community.
That's a perfect illustration. Technology and organization were definitely part of Nehemiah's project, but his success stemmed from strengthening the spiritual and the emotional foundations. That shared purpose, the sense of community, and leadership that genuinely served and encouraged people's growth and contribution.
So if AI isn't helping us address those fundamentals, purpose, community, growth, if it's somehow letting us ignore them because we're focused on the tech,
Then we might be completely missing the point of what good leadership and even what good technology stewardship should ultimately be aiming for.
Okay. This is sobering stuff. We've explored the really exciting potential, the empowerment, the efficiency gains, but we've also clearly laid out these significant risks. The temptation to cut costs aggressively at the expense of people, the way metrics can distort relationships, and this danger of distraction from deeper, crucial issues.
It's a complex picture for sure.
So how then, drawing on the guidance in these sources, how do we navigate this complex landscape with wisdom, especially from our Christian perspective?
Well, the sources consistently point towards a pathway grounded in core biblical principles. The central idea, coming up again and again, is viewing AI not as some kind of master, something that dictates our values or forces our decisions, but purely and strictly as a steward's tool.
A tool in service of something greater.
Exactly. They must always, always serve human dignity and God's purposes for human flourishing. Think of King Solomon asking God for wisdom, not riches or power, but wisdom to govern his people justly, 1 Kings 3. Leaders today need that same kind of discernment, rooted in God's truth, when deciding how and why to use this powerful technology.
It's like the Genesis mandate.
Right. Adam and Eve given dominion over creation, Genesis 1.28. That wasn't a license to exploit, but a call to manage responsibly, to cultivate, to build up. We have that same call regarding technology. Use it to help things flourish, not to dominate or diminish.
And that second point seems absolutely critical. Prioritizing relational investment. It feels non-negotiable.
It really is presented that way, critically important. AI can give us data about people or analyze tasks, but it can never, ever replace genuine personal dialogue, empathy, listening, mentorship.
Algorithms can't replicate shared life.
No, Just as the Apostle Paul modeled such deeply relational ministry, remember in 1 Thessalonians 2:8, where he talks about sharing not just the gospel, but his very life, managers need to internalize that. Algorithms don't build trust like shared experience and vulnerability do. AI insights should spark human conversations, provide data for discussion, not become an excuse to avoid them.
And anchoring all of this in a sense of vocational calling, that feels like the bedrock.
It truly is. If you see management not just as a job title or a list of tasks to optimize, but as a genuine calling to shepherd of teams, echoing 1 Peter 5:2, it fundamentally changes your approach to everything, including technology. Well, then managers should be looking for ways to use AI not to distance themselves or automate connection, but actually to enhance their capacity to truly care for, guide, and equip their people. It's a bit like Moses delegating tasks to capable elders in Exodus 18.
Oh, good example.
He wasn't abdicating his leadership, he was structuring it so the people's needs could be met more effectively, empowering others in the process. AI could be used as a tool for that kind of wise delegation and empowerment, freeing the manager for the higher-level shepherding work.
So the ideal isn't tech versus humanity, but a careful blending. Efficiency with humanity.
Precisely. Using AI to bring order, structure, and efficiency where it genuinely helps, but always within a framework that protects and promotes human freedom, creativity, dignity, and connection.
The material mentions some analogies.
Yeah, things like Lego bricks, highly structured, uniform pieces, but they allow for almost infinite creative possibilities. Or Toyota's famous production system, incredibly efficient, yes, but built upon a deep cultural belief system, centered on respect for people and continuous improvement by people.
We need to infuse our innovation with those deeper, eternal values.
That's the call. Seeing colleagues not just as resources, but as neighbors created in God's image. Viewing our work not just as tasks, but potentially as an act of worship offered to God, and consciously using technology in ways that build up, encourage, and strengthen the community within the workplace, reflecting that spirit of 1 Corinthians 14:26, that everything should be done for building up the body.
Which brings us right back to where we started almost, the essential need for ongoing wisdom and discernment.
Without a doubt. Because management, real leadership, at its heart involves so much that just can't be captured by algorithms. Understanding nuance, showing empathy, using intuition, navigating complex human dynamics, these are essential.
Things AI can't replicate.
Not in any meaningful way. So leaders have to actively exercise wisdom, seeking it from God, seeking it through prayer, from wise mentors, from scripture, and crucially, from listening really deeply to their own people, all to ensure that AI truly serves human dignity and God's greater purposes rather than becoming, an idol of efficiency or control that subtly undermines them.
This has been illuminating. This deep dive really underscores that AI integrating into management presents this incredible landscape of potential, but yeah, also those significant pitfalls that demand really careful, prayerful navigation.
It absolutely offers that great promise, streamlining tasks, freeing people up, potentially empowering managers to focus on truly meaningful work, yes, but it carries those very real risks if it's not guided by those core principles we've discussed. Valuing human dignity above raw efficiency, prioritizing genuine relational investment, and anchoring leadership firmly in a vocational calling rooted in service.
So navigating this future really does require us to consistently see AI and our work and the people we work alongside through that discerning Christian lens of stewardship. It's not optional, it seems.
It truly feels essential. It's about making sure that the powerful tools we develop and deploy ultimately honor God's beautiful design for work and reflect the immense inherent value He places on every single person He has made.
So maybe a question for all of us listening to reflect on. As you encounter AI in your own workplace, maybe in your daily life, perhaps it's a tool your manager is using or one that affects how you do your job, or maybe you're even in a leadership role thinking about implementing AI, how can you personally ensure it serves human dignity? How can you make sure it helps build up community rather than allowing it to reduce people to mere numbers or replace that vital, genuine human connection we all need?
Thank you for listening. See you next time.